This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A wonderful morning, quiet, beautiful, gorgeous, sun about to rise. Welcome to your live safari from the African bush. So we are sitting here at a part of Ecotraining's Pride Lands Conservancy, just watching over the horizon from a place called Kilikopi, one of the high points, hoping to hear any sounds of predators or alarm calls or anything this morning that will give us a direction to adventure in, to see what we've got. My name is Mike. Behind the camera we've got Seb, and we are hoping for some action today. No, we woke up this morning feeling like it was going to be action-packed. I predicted lions and leopards and wild dogs and hyenas fighting this morning on the drive. So let's see how that pans out for us. But even if we don't see anything apart from a beautiful sunrise, I'll be spectacularly overjoyed, to be honest. It doesn't need to be anything too ferocious. But I'm excited, quietly optimistic about what we're going to find. So with that being said, let's actually start getting a move on. We haven't heard anything. We've been sitting here for about 10 minutes now. We haven't heard anything yet, so let's adventure down towards Leopard Dam and see if maybe any animals are having a bit of a drink at the water this early morning.
Good morning. We are on our way to the hyena den. It's a perfect time of morning. The mist is just dissipating on the sort of horizon in front of us. And my name is Lauren. I do have Theo on camera, and we're hoping to catch some hyena action. Now, last night was very, very exciting. The Nkuhumas almost climbed on top of my car, and they ended up on a dam cam, which is exactly where I thought they would be, and they're still around. So I think David is on that mission this morning, and hopefully they're still on Djuma. So I'm sure you've been told already, but do not forget to talk to us. Send in your comments and questions. It's very chilly here this morning. My hands are, well, I think I may need to put my one glove on my hand very shortly. I'm not sure if you're able to see that mist from here. We'll try and give you a view. We're slightly higher up now. But now that the sun's popped its head up, it's not so severe. But you can see that beautiful phenomenon that is mist, water droplets suspended in the air. And this is normally when warm, moist air meets cool air. So what's happening here is because the sun is rising, it's changing the atmosphere. And this is why we have this misty effect on a winter's morning. Stunning. Faith, I think you're saying you're hoping the sun shines with excitement this morning. I hope that's what you said. But I hope for sunshine and I hope for excitement. We've had a very lot of lucky days here lately in the bush with hyenas, lion, Tandy. Once I've been to the hyena den, I'm heading east. I want to see if Tandy has crossed back into Djuma. Desperate to meet that little cub of hers. So I'm going to bumble on down towards the hyena den. Wish me luck. Let's hope there's some activity.
A warm welcome to all our viewers to a very beautiful morning here at Ambient Ngala. and we're just currently watching the sunrise over that beautiful, like, little layer of trees there. But you can see the colors are so warm. You can just see the different shades. I mean, you'll notice it's quite dark, quite lower down to the horizon. And as you go up, you have this little wash of orange and white and a bit of yellow as well. So beautiful. So I'm Nikki here at Ambion Ngala. I'm going to be your ranger for this morning, and with me on the camera is Owen. Now, our plans for this morning is going to be to try and see if we can find some lions and possibly some leopard. And as it warms up, maybe look out for some elephants and more of the other animal species, possibly giraffe, zebra, wildebeest. There's actually some wildebeest in the distance in these open clearings. But for now, let's just enjoy this beautiful sunrise before we carry on with our adventure. So just a reminder to all our viewers to please send through those questions at #WildEarth on Instagram and also at FC on YouTube. So please send those questions through. Really majestic sunrise.
And so is ours out here in Djuma, Greater Kruger National Park. As the sun rises to warm another day. Welcome everyone and good morning from myself. My name is David Hancock and Craig on camera, and this morning we are on the search for lion. We heard good audio last night and updates from the dam cam were potential munching noises. Just one sec there while Craig wipes the lens. You can see it's a very misty morning here, so a lot of condensation. So far we found one female lioness's track out on quarantine, but no specific direction. It looped in and then circled back on itself, so it appears they were hunting. Hopefully they succeeded on Djuma and have not moved too far off, but we'll take up the tracks this morning and see where they lead. Momo, you say he's spoiled with breathtaking sunrises this morning. I would love to see all the sunrises you can see on your screen, but we'll have to settle for this beautiful sunrise here. It's definitely the best time of the day. It does not get better than watching the sunrise and just feeling the bush come alive. You can feel just the warmth radiating out of it, and you can just hear as the animals wake up and are so excited for another day in the bush to see whatever they can find, just like us.
So we've found this female giraffe, and literally every time we stop and she's in a nice spot, we frame her up, and then she decides to walk on. It's literally a game of cat and giraffe. We are the cats, and we are not very good at following this giraffe. I thought at first she was just trying to get a good view of the sunrise as it was coming up, but I think she's just playing with us. which we also, it's nice to play games in the morning, you know, keep us on our toes. But yes, this giraffe is journeying down the valley, feeding slowly as she goes, just catching any tasty little leaves that are trying to escape her. And there's a little drongo that's following her as well, which is interesting. It's very early, and the drongo is just hoping to catch any insects that she disturbs as she wanders down towards the drainage line, towards the valley. I don't know if you can see her. I don't know where the drongo is right now, but it was just following behind her. But it was such a beautiful morning. She was standing out in the open, and it was with the drab grey sort of background of all these dry trees. Her colours were catching so beautifully in this golden. Oh, there's the drongo. Just flew past there, probably landing a bit closer. There's not many insects about right now, so a lot of the birds are really sticking very close to the mammals because they need to catch whatever small things they can find. Oh, I also hear some oxpeckers probably just flying in now. They will come and land on the giraffe too. Half for the warmth that the giraffe's body will offer, and also there's it sitting on the back, and also half also to eat the ticks and parasites. There's the oxpecker. It's going down onto the tail. Delicious. See what it's doing now? It's just gleaning ticks and parasites from all those soft places on a giraffe. Cape Doc's asking why giraffes' tongues are blue, and that's a good question. There's a number of theories of why the tongues are blue. One of them is that there's just a little less blood vessels there, so that all the sharp, thorny things that the giraffe eats don't cause it to bleed a lot when it's chewing. And the skin is very thick and tough, not too many blood vessels in there. That's why. That's one of the theories. Another theory is that the giraffe's tongue is very long. It can stick out the mouth, sometimes about 45 centimeters. So, and then it's out the mouth, often pulling at branches and trees and leaves, and it's got a lot of melanin in it, which makes it that dark color, which also might help it to stop being sunburnt. It's another theory. And then just a lack of blood vessels, meaning less nerve endings, so that it doesn't feel pain when it is getting stabbed by all the little sharp thorns on the buffalo thorns and the vachellias and senegalias and all sorts of different little thorny branches, because that's what they mostly eat, the thorny branches and shrubs. So those are the three theories, Cape Doc. I hope that makes sense. I don't like to work in definitives when I'm talking about the bush and animals' behaviors and stuff, because often we don't know for sure, and there's new information always coming out. So we always talk about theories and, try and never try and say when something is definite, because you know what? Animals are experts at proving us wrong. I've said to a guest before, giraffes never eat grass. They always eat bushes and branches from trees. And literally at that exact moment, this giraffe, it was in a big clearing, put its legs in a wide stance and just literally bent right down and ate a tuft of grass. And I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe that it was doing that. I'm going to just edge us forward just a tiny bit to try and see if we can get a slightly better view of this giraffe. As you can see, our lens is getting a bit fogged up with this really, really cold weather. It's quite moist, though. It feels warm somehow in the air, like thick and heavy. But it is quite cold, so we're catching a lot of the moisture. Ooh, I'm going to move us forward just even a tiny bit more. Or is that going to be fine, Seb? I think that'll probably be a bit more. Past this bush. Okay. Wonderful. Oh, look at that, eh? Now we can see her body caught in that light. She's got her head just hiding like a ostrich in the ground, but oh, that's gorgeous. Now we've got a nice sharp image. And you saw Seb there just wiping off the condensation, and then you can see the oxpecker, which is actually bothering this giraffe at the moment. As you can see, if it hops around on the face and the eyes, it can be sometimes quite bothersome. The animals, don't mind them. They ignore them and they let them do their thing, but if they get too close, it's not nice. Kelly, you're asking if oxpeckers nest and have territories. They certainly do make nests. They usually use cavities in dead trees or living trees, and they live inside those holes. They're hole nesters, and they will line those cavities with grasses and bits of fur from animals like giraffes. But I don't know if they're territorial, to be honest. I've never seen oxpeckers fighting. Perhaps sometimes fighting over nesting sites, those holes in the trees, against other hole nesters like starlings. But no, I've never seen them being territorial, so to speak. But that's interesting, an interesting question. I wonder if they are territorial. Sometimes you'll sit so that you see that the mane on that giraffe is very thick and luxurious. It's quite short hair, but you often see the oxpeckers plucking that to line their nests. Very warm, fur-lined nests for the youngsters in those dead trees. It's focusing on the high points of this giraffe, I think, mostly because that's where all the sun is as well. Oh, I love the light this morning. The light is so beautiful. Hidden giraffe. No, the giraffe was never there. It's being the tree. You know, you are what you eat, I suppose. It's too early to make those kind of things. Warren Chi, if I'm getting this right, Warren Chi is asking a good question as well. What is the purpose of a giraffe's? What is the purpose of a giraffe's mane? The purpose of a giraffe's mane, it's a good question. I don't think it serves too much of a purpose, to be honest. It's very short, and maybe it makes their neck look slightly larger and thicker, but that would only really be important for the males when they're trying to intimidate each other. I don't think it keeps them warm. It might just be, I don't know. Well, it certainly looks very pretty, so I think it's just accessorizing. You know, like those tiny little moon bags some people wear. I don't think they're very functional, but apparently they're all the rage at the moment. Perhaps that's what the giraffe's doing. It's got a little mane, looks nice, doesn't do much. I don't know, does anyone else have any theories about what a giraffe's mane does? Have you heard anything from other guides about what a giraffe's mane does? I don't think it does too much. I'm going to move us forward again a tiny bit because she's now basically on the road, or at least looks like she's on a bit of a clearing. It's a beautiful morning to spend with a giraffe, eh? Nice and golden. Still listening for any sounds in the distance that might lead us to some of those predatory animals. And there we've got a good view of her again. Now you can see that mane illuminated quite pretty in the light. See that? Yeah, I don't know. If anyone else has theories about giraffe manes, I'd love to hear them. I haven't heard too many, to be honest. Perhaps they're just there for nesting material for the oxpeckers. Enticing the oxpeckers down. You know, trees have flowers in order to entice animals to pollinate them, and also bees and things. I don't think that's the case, to be honest. I very much doubt a giraffe's mane is solely for oxpeckers to come and get nesting material.
What about to protect it from the sun?
Yeah, I mean, Seb is suggesting maybe,
The vertebrae are there.
yeah, maybe a little bit of sun protection, heat protection, because that's close to where the spine column is. Yeah, Seb, it makes sense, I suppose. Interesting. Maybe just keeping away thorns. Oh, I like these topics in the morning. Please don't forget to send your questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv or #wildearth on Twitter. These kind of questions get me going in the morning.
We are nearly at one of our other water holes. We just want to go have a look and see if there's some animals that might have come down during the evening. Maybe that pride that we are looking out for this morning. It's not too far, and it's just such a beautiful morning with all the trees, the different colors, the sunrise. And there's also, early on, we saw some ground hornbills that were crossing the road into this open area, probably looking out for some breakfast. But for now, we're not too far away from this water hole. Let's go and see if there's any surprise there. Now, I haven't seen any tracks yet of some of the lions or even leopard that we could be looking out for. But there's quite a few hyena tracks in the area, and that's not a bad thing, because if there's hyenas, there's a chance they might be trailing a pride, or possibly if there's any wild dogs in the area, or even a leopard with a carcass up in the tree, or maybe even on the ground. But the waterhole is right in front of us. Let's have a look and see what we can find. It's so beautiful. There's a bit of mist over this waterhole. There we go. I'm just gonna stop like this quickly. Looks like there might be some hippos right here next to one of the logs in the water. Looks like a fallen over tree. And just around it are quite a few hippos. Just trying to scan the water also just to see if there's anything near the water's edge. There's nothing yet, but quite a few interesting birds though. So from just before where those hippos are, there's another fallen over tree, and just on the side that's closer to us, it looks like there's a bird quite close to the water's edge. Now if you notice the colors, you'll notice there's a bit of grey on the side of the wing, you'll notice a bit of black at the end, and a bit of white around the neck and head area. So it's a... Well, before I say the name, I would really love to know from some of our viewers if you can guess what bird this is. Now I can give you a little clue. So this bird, the sound it makes almost sounds like a blacksmith working in his workshop. So that's the little clue. So I'd love to hear from the guests, from all the viewers, what you think this bird might be. And there's another bird on the very top of this dead tree. So you see, notice there's a nest, and just on top of it, a bird making a call at the moment. So that's an Egyptian goose. Notice the colors, the white on the shoulder tips. There's a bit of like a light wash of brown on the chest and neck area. But just notice the mist in the back. It is just an absolutely spectacular morning. I want to try and be as quiet as possible, and I want you to listen to some of the noises of the birds as they are calling this morning. Megan, you are 100% correct. So the old name was the blacksmith plover. The new name now for it is the blacksmith lapwing. But well done in that. That's really, really good. There's also there's actually quite a few interesting birds calling now. In the distance you can hear the Swainson spurfowls. I can hear crested franklins, laughing doves. That Egyptian goose. Might even hear the blacksmith lapwing calling in the distance. It's incredible. There's I just wanted to point out, so Owen, from right in front of us here, before this fallen over tree, there's one of those black-smith lapwings, and just in front of it there's another bird near the edge of the water that's drinking at the moment. Now, early on I mentioned to some of the viewers, I don't know, but I think it might have just flown off. It was right in front where that blacksmith lapwing was, and as I turned back, I saw it just moving off. I'm just trying to see if I can find another one. But it was a laughing dove that was going down to drink. But notice how this lapwing's moving, probably looking out for little insects near the water's edge. Koala bear, there are some fish in this particular waterhole. The ones that we sometimes notice the most is something like catfish. And especially when we have quite a bit of a dry season and all the water starts clearing up, you might find quite a few of them, especially in the bit of puddles of water that is left, or the bit of mud, because eventually what they do is they dig themselves into the mud and become dormant for quite some time, and as soon as there's a bit of rain they'll make their way out again. But often during that time you'll find a lot of marabou storks, possibly some fish eagles that will go and catch. There's quite a few birds, a number of birds that will go and try and get them, but in general you do see quite a few of the storks, as well as some of the raptors or fish eagles that can go and possibly try and pull them out. But in the meantime, after enjoying this waterhole for quite some time, I think I'll probably just start heading off from here and see what other amazing animals we can find.
We just stopped here at this termite mound to view one of the most striking birds in the bush, and probably my favorite bird in the bush, the crested barbet, which is now being a little bit shy. Hopefully it hops back to where it was. It was eating termites, which is very cool to witness. Let's just sit here patiently and see if it comes back. What I love about them is their call. It sounds almost like an alarm clock. Not that I love alarm clocks, it sounds better than that. They've just got an ability to call for ages. I actually read that they've got like a dual trachea where they can inhale and exhale at the same time. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but apparently that's what gives them the ability to give such a long call. I want to move a little bit forward to see its head, but I don't want to scare it. It was really munching away at some termites here in a little opening in the termite mound. But perhaps we can risk just squeezing a little bit forward and getting a lovely look at that crested barbet. Is it gonna stay? Ah, man. Well, we tried. We might get another look. What do you think, Craig? You feeling lucky? That's the thing with birds. They're so chilled until you want to film them and then they fly away. Well, I think we might get him. Through the branches there. At the back. That can breach him at the back, kind of right a lot higher than you would think. There you go. Spot of burning to start our morning, although not the greatest visual. It's like playing hide and go seek. As it hops around this morning looking for breakfast. And off it goes. Very, very cool. Well, I love crested barbets, and that was fun to spend some time with one. Let's carry on and see what we can find. We are still on the tracks of the lion, although we've now gotten reports that there are lion tracks on our southern boundary. So hopefully it's not on kahumas that have missioned all the way down there and crossed out, but I'm going to follow up and have a look.
I know that David just had a crested barbet, and we're sitting here at Leopard Dam, and we could actually also hear one a moment ago calling not so far from us. But it's so beautiful and still. Look at that glassy reflection of this tambuti trees on this small island in Leopard Dam. It's a really lovely scene. Just waiting here again. We've driven all the way down from Kilikoppi in the west of the reserve down to the dam just to see if we hear any more happening around here. But it's very calm. So nice. I can hear hornbills, a couple of red-billed hornbills doing their morning display. Crested francolin, Cape turtle doves. Oh, and speaking of doves, there's one that's just landed at the edge of the water. It's an emerald spotted wood dove. Very close to us, just near that little dung pile there, Seb. You see it? Oh, sounds like there are more questions or answers about the giraffe's mane. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear them. Joseph, maybe to protect its neck from branches? Yeah, sounds like a plausible reason for it to have that spiky, stiff, erect mane. I think that's definitely possible. I mean, it's sticking its head and neck amongst these thorny bushes. You don't want to get that neck scratched. Oh, look at this emerald spotted wood dove coming to drink in front of us. When it turns, you can just see why it's called emerald spotted, because it's got these beautiful dark patches. When they catch the light, it has this beautiful emerald color. It's one of the smaller doves that we get here. Definitely one of the most beautiful. It's got a very mournful call. Oh my goodness, I must have said something horrible in dove language, because it immediately flew away when I tried to imitate its call. I'm assuming that I said something mean. I'm sorry, Mr. Dove, or Mrs. Dove. I promise I didn't mean it. We were doing some research, Seb and I, about the giraffe's manes, and you know, we could only really find info about horses' manes. And you know, the horse's mane is there to protect its neck from, you know, getting wet. It helps the water to run off, keeps them warm as well. Now, I don't think a giraffe's mane does this because it's very short. But, you know, manes perform a lot of functions in different animals, from making them look larger in the Nyala and Kudu's case when they're doing a lateral display where they kind of walk next to each other and they erect that mane to make them look bigger. Maybe that's sort of similar with the giraffe at a distance. The two males walking up to each other, the neck looks thicker and stronger with the big mane. Oh, and Seb had a really good, interesting theory. When they are leaning down, the neck is catching a lot of sun, so maybe the spine is protected from UV radiation with that. Or maybe they just like a good hairdo. I don't know. Lovely reflections. I've said many times before, I'd love to string up a hammock between those two trees on that little island, because it's sort of separate from the mainland, so it might not be too many animals that come and disturb me, and I can have a good old rest there. And then I wonder how many animals I would see coming down to the water's edge. I mean, it'd be crazy, right? I mean, if you stay very still, animals will get used to you and they'll come down. Animals' eyes are actually really good at spotting movement, so if you stay still, often they'll just completely overlook you, which would be great with a hammock. I'll get a green one.
we're also at a water hole. We've came down to Chitwa Dam. Look how glorious this is. It's like something out of one of those horror movies when you see all the mist coming off the water first thing in the morning. It's very surreal, actually. Now, Theo, we have a bird here in this, I think it's a dead knobthorn. 9 o'clock. I don't know what it is, because I'm being blinded by that wonderful ball of gas. But let's see up here if we can identify it. Might be the fish eagle. It doesn't look very fish eagle to me. If anyone can identify this silhouette, you get a prize. MJ, I agree, it's so beautiful. I don't see any animals other than this bird, but it's stunning. It's definitely a raptor. Look at the beak. It could be the fish eagle. I really can't see from here, but isn't it stunning? Just looking at the silhouette of animals, the shapes. Silence as well, other than the birds. No noise from the hippos. They're obviously not quite awake yet. Joy in Hong Kong, you think Batalier? Very possibly. I don't know. I'm not throwing out a quiz here. I actually don't know. I'm staring straight into the sun. I guess we could maybe try and drive closer and see and get the answer. Shall we do that? Okay, this is just going to take a few seconds. Let's drive. We get beautiful views of the dam, and then we can see exactly what bird it is. Jamie, you're saying fish eagle? Again, I don't know. But let's see. It could be. I mean, the fish eagle always sits on that tree. So just let's go slowly. Hope it doesn't fly away, and see if we can actually find out what raptor this is. I love the word raptor. I love its meaning, its significance. It comes from Latin, rapiere. It means to grab, to seize. And it basically describes the way that raptors use their talons, and not their beaks, their talons, to seize their prey. Okay, here we go, Theo. You better be ready. We're driving right into the sun here. Okay, I'm just going to try and get as close as possible. I think it's a fish eagle. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. We have one fish eagle. So well done, whoever said fish eagle. Here we go. Good morning. Please don't fly away. Bataliers have a sort of fatter head, if that makes sense. The fish eagle's got quite a slender head, and it was stretching out its neck there to preen itself, whereas bataliers tend to have a lot more plumage around their face and their head. There we go. One of the monogamous pairs of fish eagles. It's always in this dead knobthorn. I wonder where its monogamous pair is. Or partner, sorry. They normally remain in visual contact with one another. So they don't necessarily need to sit or roost in the same tree. But they do normally sort of position themselves so they can see one another. Isn't it stunning? I imagine this fish eagle will actually get ready to hunt soon. It'll be hungry on this cold morning. It's going to swoop down and using those talons, it's going to grab something. We watched it kill an African green pigeon not so long ago. Nice, Theo. Look at the detail. Look at that sharp beak. So that's for when they've already got the prey in their talons. They use the beak to tear and shred through the flesh. We always talk about predators and immediately you think of lion, leopard, wild dog, hyena. But here you have an aerial predator, apex in its own right. You can see that it's damp from the morning mist. Again, they don't just hunt fish. They will swoop down on any sort of small mammal or small bird that they can.
It seems to me this morning we're doing a bit of a birding morning. So from a fish eagle to some vultures sitting up in this dead tree here. So we try to see if there's maybe a carcass underneath, but I reckon that they probably just decided to come and roost in this tree from the evening, now enjoying that little bit of sunlight before they eventually move off. But from vultures, there's another bird that we are having a look at the moment. So just left of it, you'll notice there's a bird up in that tree. Just want to see the color of the beak there. Now there's two types of, well, there's more than two types of hornbills in this area, but the one here has a red bill, so this is the red bill hornbill. And if we just listen out, we might hear this one calling. Oh, he decided to fly off. But just back to the vultures. So there's quite a few species of vultures we do get in the area. We get the whiteback, Cape vulture, hooded vulture, white-headed, and the lappet face. And so these that we're seeing here, the majority that we do see is whiteback vultures. The Cape vulture also get here, and it's very similar looking to the one that we are looking at now, but the eye is a lot. It's a bit of a lighter color, almost like a bluish color eye in comparison to the one that we're seeing now, because you can see the eye is very dark. You can't really distinguish it from the rest of the face, but the Cape, if you had to look at it, would have more of a bright bluish color eye in comparison to this one. Listen, I think it's just the way that that particular vulture is just sitting at the moment. Because with them, they have those very long necks in order to, especially when there's a carcass, to get their head right in there and feed off the carcass. But of course, early part of the morning, you know how you sometimes when you sit somewhere, you almost like tuck yourself in order to stay warm. So they just bring their heads quite close to their body, or else if they had to extend it the whole, I mean, probably not as comfortable as just bringing it closer together and sitting like that. but just enjoying that early morning sun.
Well, during our lion tracking expedition, we stumbled across this little breeding herd of elephants. Just spending some lovely heartwarming moments with these youngsters, watching them go about their business. Some more of the herd here coming down on the right, moving slowly, stopping to pick the tastiest leaves that they can find. A little bit tough to see there through the trees, but she's using her foot to stabilize the plant or whatever she's munching as she pulls and breaks it. Very useful, their feet. They use them to dig up roots. They're like a giant spade, a big shovel. Sometimes you'll see where elephants have been digging, and it's quite amazing. It looks like a team of excavators have been there. Past my bedtime, you've asked, by chewing branches, does it help sharpen the elephant's tusks? And it won't sharpen the tusks. The tusks are the two protruding tusks on the outside. Their teeth on the inside would do the chewing. Their molars are specifically designed to chew vegetation. And chewing the branches won't assist in sharpening them. But what it does do is wear them down. As you may know, elephants go through 6 sets of molars in their life, pushing forward from the back as the front set wear out. And those do get worn down by the roughage that they chew, faster or slower depending on their main diet and the area that they're in. But their tusks only get sharpened through the use of them as tools. So often an elephant will dig with their tusks or use their tusks to hook into a tree's bark and rip it out. Sometimes you can see the bottom of an elephant's tusk is a bit flatter where it's been used to rub, and that kind of sharpens it into a bit of a spear point. Not that they're trying to make their tusks sharp, it doesn't assist them in any way. I don't think having a sharp tusk, it just kind of happens by wear and tear. Perhaps a sharper tusk assists in ripping into a tree's bark, but I wouldn't say it's something that they do purposefully. It's just a natural occurrence. Actually, maybe see it on that female now that you've zoomed in on. If we look closer at those tusks, you can actually see how the bottom's been worn away, giving it a bit of a sharper appearance. Lovely. pull it a little bit forward. See if we can get a bit of a different angle. There they are. Munching away. I wonder how far they walked last night, where these elephants come from. They move so far, can cover huge distances at night. It's not a stretch to even imagine that yesterday they were somewhere over the boundary in Kruger National Park. The day before could have even been across the boundary into Mozambique, as all those boundaries are open now in the Greater Transfrontier Park, Greater Conservation Area. It's amazing to think just a couple days ago these elephants could have been across in another country in Mozambique, and now they're here in Djuma and the Sabi Sands. Tomorrow they might be in another reserve out to the west. It's the beauty of these larger conservation areas. It allows these animals the freedom to move where they want to move to.
Good morning, everyone. It is another beautiful day out here at Swala Kalahari. I hope you all, wherever you are, that you had a good rest, and whatever you do today, you stay safe. Davi's on camera there, as always, just doing a fantastic job. My name's Dylan, and I hope you're going to stick with us and join us as we explore this absolutely magnificent and ancient land. I've got one or two ideas of what I'd like to do today. I haven't quite formulated them yet, but it might be quite fun later. Maybe go kick some lions out of bed or something, but we'll see. We don't know yet, and I'll just see how the day pans out. I think I'm going to give the meerkats a break this morning. Not that they need a break, but our meerkat habituator, Rebecca, she is going up there, so she'll keep tabs on any untoward developments if that happens. But otherwise, yeah, I think let's just amble around and just enjoy being out in nature this morning. I think there's a lot to be said for that. You know, sometimes you get like so focused on the pursuit of something, and you actually kind of forget the bigger picture. So this morning I'm quite content just to amble around and just enjoy being in the outdoors, like I do every single day. So there's nothing wrong with being in the outdoors. So I hope you all snuggled up somewhere with a cup of coffee or a good book maybe, or just chilling and watching us. That's all good, all good. So we've still got 9 ducklings here, and I'm very, very pleased about that. I'm very excited about that. And I wonder even what the predation rate on these is. The literature says they've got a very, very, very high success rate, and it's not unusual for 70% of the ducklings to survive, which is crazy. If you compare it to a lot of other things, 70% is like woo, you start throwing parties if 70% of them survive. So with these youngsters, a mortality rate of 50% or higher is perfectly normal in the outdoors, but these little guys are 70% or higher, which is great news. This environment here where there's no underwater predators here, because these are really ephemeral bodies of water here, they don't last long. So there's no things like terrapins that can eat them. Terrapins are these little water turtles. They grab them from underneath, pull them under, drown them, gobble them up. And there's no crocodiles and things like that. So actually these little ones, I think we're going to have a good survival rate in these ducklings.
How amazing is this? So we basically came back to where that young male leopard has been seen over the last little while in that tree. And just underneath the tree, there's 2 hyenas that are moving around. Now, this leopard was on the ground, but it just quickly jumped into the tree. You can see the hyenas looking up towards where the carcass is. But you'll see this. You just see the back part of that leopard and the beautiful long tail, but it looks like that hyena and that leopard might have a bit of a stare down. So what I'm going to ask is just that everyone bears with me. I'm just going to push slightly forward. There is a little gap that we can possibly get a better glimpse of this leopard. But of course, there's no guarantee. So I'm going to move slightly forward. Just bear with me. And I'm going to ask Owen, let me know once you're in this gap right over here. Okay. Let's just give it a go and see if we can get a glimpse of this leopard's face from here. Here we go. Now the other hyena has just gone and lied down here at the back. Now this leopard is looking at this particular hyena. He's probably just thinking that, especially with the 2 hyenas being around, they'll probably try and chase this leopard. But luckily, this leopard is so smart that it's moved its kill up into the tree. And now from a safe vantage point, knowing that the hyenas can't climb a tree. So I just want to move a little bit like this. But you'll notice just off to this side, the one hyena is basically where that leopard lied down a bit earlier when we just arrived. And I can imagine with these hyenas, they're probably here because they're hoping for 1 or 2 little scraps to fall down from the tree so they can go and eat it. And they can be very patient. I mean, these hyenas will stay around in this area for quite some time. They might even find a nice spot and lie down for the next few hours, just patiently waiting for this leopard to feed and eventually, hopefully, drop something for them.
Okay, we have just found a lapwing nest. This is a crowned lapwing, and we were sitting here very quietly, and this bird came to actually sit on the nest. It was incredible to watch it fluff out its soft downy feathers and go to sit down. And then I shifted in the car slightly, and the bird got up and started making a whole lot of noise. But if we stay quietly, it might go and sit on the nest again. Look at those eggs, though. Incredibly well camouflaged. If you are walking in the bush, it's likely that you won't even see these eggs. They're dappled just like this dry bush and grasses and stones. As Seb zooms out there, just look how they blend in. I mean, now it's invisible. You will never know it's there at all. Now, crowned lapwings are known to prefer man-modified habitats. So this open area used to be farmland, and it's slowly rewilding itself. And so the lapwings have taken a home here, and there's 3 or 4 pairs of lapwings here. But this one lapwing is just really, really enjoying this clearing, and it's made eggs quite close to the road. And lapwings are known for a display where they walk and flap their wings in such a way that they distract a predator, and the predator will follow them rather than focusing on the nest. You can see with these bright red legs and the black and white markings on its face, it's very eye-catching. So it would easily be able to distract a predator from the nest. And you know, once the predator starts to follow it, it will lose sight of that nest. Even Seb can't find the nest now. Keep going left, Seb. Keep going, keep going, keep going. There it is, middle of the screen. Yeah. So you can see there's 2 eggs there. And I tell you what, I've done it before where a tracking partner of mine did point out a nest and said, there's a nest there. And then we went to have a look at it. And it took forever to find it. And I basically was standing right above it, and I still couldn't see it. And you can see with this incredible camouflage just why they do so well. Even though they're ground nesters, you'd think these eggs would be particularly vulnerable. And I know that there is a pair of jackals that lives in this big open clearing as well on Impala Plains. But they have not disturbed this, because they'll definitely eat the eggs, jackals, if they found them. but they have not been able to find them because of the lapwing's distraction display and because of these incredibly well camouflaged eggs. I don't think that the lapwing will come and sit on the nest again now that I shifted and the light caught, I think it was my foot or something, and then it started to make this noise. When we were sitting quietly, Seven Eye, it came, and you can actually see the feathers on its breast are puffed up a little bit. It's actually a very gorgeous bird, a crowned lapwing. Oh, maybe it's going to go back. Bubbly beckles, there is a reason why it prefers man-modified habitats. These habitats are usually more open, short grass, just like what we see, and it's easy for these lapwings to catch the insects that they hunt. So they can just walk through the grass, catch the insects, and their camouflage works really well. If the grass is too long, they don't seem to do very well at catching the prey. So that's why they prefer man-modified habitats. So it's often the case that man's influence is detrimental to the environment, but in some cases, as long as it's not too extreme, modifications of habitats sometimes benefit certain animals. I mean, think of jackals that are spreading, and lapwings, and a variety of different birds like Egyptian geese who enjoy all the man-made dams all over the world, spreading slowly. I've seen also sometimes, oh look, it's about to go and catch something. I thought it was maybe going to catch an insect that it had seen. Sometimes there's power lines that cross all over continents, and you'll find birds that nest on these power lines can slowly spread into areas where they normally couldn't. For example, into very arid desert-like areas, like in the northern western parts of southern Africa. Power lines that go there, telephone lines, animals can often nest on those, and they spread into areas where they wouldn't normally be able to be found. So some animals benefit from man's influence. It's gorgeous. We're actually going to leave this lapwing now, just so that it can go back to sit on its nest without being disturbed.
This particular leopard decided to move up onto this one branch now from that little open spot. I don't know if we're going to get a good glimpse of him, but we're just trying to see if we can get him. If not, we'll try and reposition the vehicle. So basically, you can just see that little patch of sunlight on his left leg, and then just a little bit of his face. But as we mentioned, it is a bit hard to see. What we might just do is let's try and reposition the vehicle. Now, there's no guarantee we are going to get a better view, but we can just try it. We're going to slowly move forward, and Owen and I are going to work together to try and see if we can get another glimpse for everyone. So just hold on as we do this. I'm going to slowly move forward and hopefully get another glimpse. Okay, there might be a gap coming up soon. We just want to move it a little bit closer just to see if we can see it. Okay, I might just move. No, I think from here on was probably the best gap that we'll get for the moment. We'll just look at that little patch of sunlight on his belly area, and what it might also be is, I mean, he had quite a bit of that impala, which is that carcass. So for some of our viewers that haven't seen it, so over the last few days, I'm just going to move slightly back because there might be, Owen reckons there might be, could be a slightly better view. So I'm going to slowly move there. Hold on. Oh. Just hold on. There we go. Okay, wait, let me go forward a bit again. There we go. So that's probably the best view that we're going to get for the moment. But so he made a kill a couple of days ago on an impala female, and then for a while he left the carcass on the ground, but then he hoisted it up into the tree and he's now moved it, and he's been here for the last few days. His belly is full, he's made himself comfortable on that branch, and now he's just enjoying that early morning sun up in this tree. one thing that leopards can definitely do is, even though it looks uncomfortable or it's an uncomfortable branch, they can definitely make it look super comfortable. Butterfly, I would agree with you. It definitely looks like the leopard tree house. And it's the most ideal tree for a leopard to be in. There's a lot of cover. There's a lot of horizontal branches for him to lie down on. And also a nice place just to be able to hoist a carcass in. So the most ideal. And of course a very scenic view over this beautiful Timbavati River. So even though his eyes are properly shut, notice how he's moving his ear left and right. So even though he's trying to rest up, he's still aware of what's going on around him. Because imagine for him, other dangers could possibly be bigger male leopards that move through this area. The chances are, if there's any lions, that if they smell that carcass, they're able to climb that tree. So he needs to make sure that he is aware of what's going on. And as soon as there's any movement, he'll open his eyes, quickly scan, see if it's a possible danger. And if not, he'll just carry on lying down like this. But look how well hidden he is amongst the branches. Moira, it can be used as an indication that they are young, having that pink on the nose. However, I need to say there are exceptions to the rules. You might even find a male leopard that's way past this prime, like let's say past 10 years of age, and they could also have a little bit of pink around the nose. So it's not always the best indication to use, but it can be used as an indication, especially when they are young. But from my experience from some of the leopards here is that probably 5 out of the 9 or 10 leopards that you might find will have still pink noses when they get to a certain age. So it's not always the best indication, but it is an indication to use. But what we try and normally do is look at a lot of the facial features. You'll notice often with the leopard, the older they get, it looks like these little patches of fur missing around their skin. There might be quite a few scratches from some of the fights because they're territorial. They fight for a certain area. You might find there could be quite a few tears in the ears. The color of the eyes slowly starts fading as they get older and older. But those are some of the things we can possibly use. But often the pink nose could be used, but not accurately. He's just made himself so comfortable on that branch right now.
So these little ducklings that we're watching over here, we were just working out some figures. And remember I said to you, we'll try to give you a figure of, because the burrow that they were in, the nesting site, is 800 meters, exactly 800 meters away from the dam. And it turns out, so the parents flew, when we got here, they were both here, then they flew out here at 7:24, and they got back here at 8:02 in the morning with the ducklings. And so those are the timestamps that when Davia was filming, when they left and when they came back with the ducklings. So they did 800 meters in 38 minutes. So they were covering 35 centimeters, 0.35 meters a second, which is fine for these little guys. So it's 1.26 kilometers per hour, or 4.75 minutes per 100 meters. How awesome is that? And now we know how fast a South African shelduck duckling walks. That is probably the first time ever that's been worked out. So that is the coolest thing on the planet. I'm retiring now. Now that that's that final figure that I've been wanting my entire life. Just that figure. Now, hey, how's that, eh? 4.75 minutes per 100 meters. 35 centimeters a second. That's what you little guys can walk, eh? Trishna is asking, do the ducklings get cold in the winter? I'm sure they do get cold in the winter. But what they do is actually, when it is cold, they actually shelter underneath the mother. So the mother will, the mom, which is the one on the far right that's just put her head under the water to hide from us, then she's feeding. With a white head, that's the female. She'll actually sit on the bank and then spread her wings a little bit, and then all the little ducklings actually go sit directly underneath her. So they'll be very, very well protected. And they obviously got nice fat reserves. They're very, very downy. So they've obviously, and they're very water repellent as well. So yeah, I don't think they're going to be worried too much about, getting too cold. But anything has its limits. You can put them in a freezer and they're probably going to freeze. That's what happens. I'm not recommending putting shell ducklings in a freezer. I'm just saying, it's a yes, they're gorgeous, eh? Proud parents. And those adults actually do that when they do those handstands for exercise. That's how they keep fit. You see, they put their head down like that and they pedal with their legs, you see, and that helps keep them in good condition. Some books would say it's feeding, but that's totally wrong. It's just all about fitness out here. Survival of the fittest. And if a shell duck doesn't exercise like that, it's going to get eaten. No, that's just rubbish, don't worry. Taylor May has asked, do I think the water is too cold for the ducklings? I don't think so at all. I tell you, the water is too cold for me. That's for very sure. I took a little amble in there the other day. Fair enough, it was minus 6 degrees outside, so I should have seen that one coming, eh? But there's no cure for stupidity, apparently. But no, not for these ducklings, though. These little guys are so well adapted for this environment. And just think, they've been hatched underground 800 meters away. You saw that burrow yesterday. Any number of predators could have gone down there. The parents kept them safe the whole time down there. They came out, they waddled at 35 centimeters a second, 4.75 minutes per 100 meters. They got down here safely. Now they just, they're keeping going. This is just the best thing in the world. And we will keep following these little ducklings over the course of their career. Maybe not their whole career, because that would be pretty challenging, but certainly the first 2 months, I reckon, because I think, like we were saying, it's like 54 to 60 days or 54 to 61 days before they're actually completely able to fly and they'll start moving off. So we've got a good way to go with them yet.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
So we are looking at just a spectacular leadwood tree, and you've been looking at those shell ducks that get very cold and have to snuggle up, and look what we found. We've found a whole family of squirrels that are also having to snuggle. Look at that. They're sitting on the sunny side, the eastern side of this leadwood, and they're literally just piling on top of each other in order to conserve body warmth, to catch as much sun as possible. Isn't that wonderful? They look so comfortable. If I was a squirrel, I would do just that. Some of them look a bit smaller as well, so perhaps there's some young ones there. This is probably a family, a male, a female, and their offspring that are piled up together. This leadwood probably has lots of holes all over it that these squirrels live in. And although their little hole, cavity, burrow, nest type thing will be warm in the evenings after the sun's been heating up that leadwood, during the night it gets colder and colder as the cold seeps into the wood, and it's so dense, once it gets cold it'll take a long time to warm up. So they've come out where the sun's warmth can heat them up directly. And that's just so lovely. You can see how fluffy their fur is. They're probably actually raising their fur up to let the warm sun get directly onto their skin. I'd like to be the one in the middle It looks like it's got the best deal there. I don't know why that other one is on the right hand side, seems to be slightly apart from the group. That's probably the dad. He's just like, yeah, I don't need that right now. So I've been snuggled up the whole night. Give me my space. It's probably a teenager actually. It's being embarrassed by its parents. But very cute though. And they don't often stay here very long, because once it warms up enough, predatory birds, hawks and eagles and other things will start to get active on the rising thermals, and these squirrels will have to take shelter and also start to feed. Small animals need to feed very, very often in order to keep their metabolism going. And you can see there, they're on a very exposed perch. It's great for the sun, but not great to hide from predators. And we saw an owl yesterday, or the day before yesterday, that had caught what was probably, on hindsight, a scrub hare. And, you know, these squirrels could suffer the same fate from a daytime predator if they're not careful, if they sit there. I mean, there's 4 of them, and they're sort of looking in different directions, so they'll be able to watch each other's backs. And as we know, squirrels are often alarm calling whenever they see something dangerous. So they're very good at spotting danger, but they do get caught every now and again. Butterfly, this cuddle love looks so comfortable. This is exactly what a squirrel should do. In fact, it's what everyone should be doing in the early morning, warming themselves up with a few cuddles. So, Seb? I don't know if Seb's going to cuddle me, but he agrees that cuddles are nice in the morning. Gert also didn't go for it. No one wants to cuddle. But I usually have my hot water bottle. That's kind of like having a cuddle partner, which is quite cool. Not this morning, though. I braved it, and I regret my decision immensely. So nice. I love the patterns on leadwoods as well. It's my favorite tree. I know Londeka at the FC is saying she feels bad for the one that's left out. I agree. But I mean, the warm sun is a replacement. It's just social distancing, guys. It's the only one being responsible. The rest of them are piling on each other. It's disastrous. That one there is following the rules, keeping itself socially distant, still socializing, but making sure it has minimal contact. Oh, what's happening? Change position. Oh, look at that one stretching at the back there. Okay, I think the cuddle party is over. We've warmed up enough. I need to start having a shower and get to my daily business. So you see that even squirrels do a lot of allo grooming, keeping each other clean and also, strengthening their social bonds. And squirrels are omnivorous, surprisingly. They do eat not only seeds and nuts, but they will eat insects. And I've even read some articles, I can't remember where, that larger squirrels might even steal chicks out of nests. So those little insects will also be food for them. Tree squirrels definitely stockpile food, 100%. That is a great question. Do they stockpile food just like North American squirrels and the larger squirrels that you see in cities? Yes, they do. They'll put the food in holes in trees just like this leadwood. And we've also seen, I only saw it for the first time last year, squirrels going into termite mounds. And I found out later that they often also stash their food underground in these termite mounds, in the abandoned termite mounds. So they definitely will do that. And we often see in the middle of winter, when there's not much food around, we'll find a little pile of seed husks, like marula seed husks, and that's probably from a stockpile of squirrels.
Look who we found. Got them. And not just any lion. Looks like one of the Avoca males. Perhaps Blondie. Haven't quite seen his face very well. And a female, I'm assuming is one of the Nkuhumas, I believe. And I'm thinking it's that female that we saw the other day that was starting to show signs of being an oestrus. And now just the two of them together is a good indication of a mating pair. So we're going to stick around here and maybe we can catch it live. have quite an abundance of sexual activity when the female is in estrus. She'll only be in estrus for a couple days, and mating is very frequent, about 3-4 times an hour. So if we sit here long enough, I'm hoping we get to see it. Those big black tufts on the end of their tails. One of my favorite bits about lion. They say it's a follow me sign for the youngsters in the tall grass when the pride is moving through the bush. It's a good hypothesis. I suppose also a good fly swatter, and of course it helps with balance and agility. Tic-toc-toe, you've asked, do they hunt during a mating session? That's a very interesting question. I haven't personally seen it, but just from my experience and thinking about it logically, they are opportunistic cats, as all predators are. And if they came upon something that was easy prey, or perhaps a wounded animal, I'm sure they would not pass up the opportunity to give it a munch. But tic-toc-toe, their primary function right now and purpose is to mate. And that's where most of their attention is going to be lying. Now, remember, females are extremely promiscuous during this period. So what she can do is, after a couple days, if this male is worn out, then she'll actually move on to another male in the pride, maybe his brother, and he would probably then be open to hunting again if he was quite hungry and worn out after his 2-day romp. And interestingly, it's actually this high availability of sexual encounters that reduces male rivalry within the coalition. So hopefully that answers your question. Just had another vehicle pull up in the sighting, if you heard that. Everyone's excited to come and see the lion this morning. Took a while to find them. But this is not actually the pair that we started tracking this morning. The rest of the pride that were following the buffalo crossed out on the southern boundary. These tracks we picked up a little bit before the boundary. So quite a lucky find, as they are literally right on our cut line, another 200 yards, and they would have been out of Djuma. But for now, just lazy lines. We will definitely be letting you know if it looks like anything's going to happen here. Well, as I say, we're going to sit here, see what happens, but we'll be sure to call you right back if there's any action.
So we found some white chocolate, Milky Bar chocolate, lying here this morning. What we've got here is a lovely example of a brown hyena midden site. And there are actually hyena tracks over there where I'm pointing a stick to. I don't know if you can see it. It's quite difficult to see. But you can just see there. Yeah, it's not great. But we'll get you some nice brown hyena tracks later. There's another bigger one over there, that will be a front foot. And then this one is the hind foot. Remember, the front feet on most animals are actually broader than the hind feet, just because they carry more weight in the forequarters. That's a kind of a general tracking rule. Don't hold me to that, please. But yeah, so this is a white rhino. What do you call a white rhino? They're not even closely related. A white rhino and a brown hyena. This is a brown hyena midden sight, and as you would have seen with other hyena droppings with our colleagues, the white is from all the calcium. It's actually green initially from all the bacteria on it, or the gut fauna when it comes out, and then it just goes this beautiful white color. And you could literally, if you wanted to, not that I'm recommending it again, you could write on a chalkboard with this. This is how high. This is just calcium. It's literally just all the bones that they've been crunching up. And we've seen that eland carcass that we were at the other day. You can just see how all those ribs were eaten off on the edges. So these animals are past masters of going through all sorts of bones. And what is a really interesting feature about brown hyenas, and I don't know quite why they would do it, but they are extremely adept at taking legs off a carcass. I know it sounds crazy, but they do it. They'll actually dismember the legs. They will chew through the sinews, the ligaments, any skin that's still attached, and they'll actually take legs off the carcass. And that kudu that was at the dam that the spotted hyenas caught, and spotted hyenas don't do that, by the way, just out of interest. And the spotties caught that, but then the next day the brown hyena came down that we got some lovely footage of with Davy. And while we were actually sitting watching, we were talking about it, and while we were sitting watching, this hyena went took that leg off, and then he just carted this one leg off. So that's quite an interesting feature. Now, they'll often stash those things not too far away from the carcass, but they'll stash it under bushes and trees and long grass and that kind of thing. If they've got an active den site, they will actually take large pieces of the carcass like that up to the den site for the pups to feed on. So yeah, this is quite interesting. But anyway, it's just nice to see this. These midden or latrine sites, they'll be scattered right throughout the territories, and it's a really good visual as well as a scent marker for any other hyena moving through the area. These do not get shared with spotted hyenas. Spotties don't do this. So this is just really, really nice to see. Good example. We also have some cheetah tracks, there were cheetah that actually came pasture during the course of last night. They scent marked around us, and when they headed out in that direction. So we're just going to take a slow amble. Like I said, it's a Sunday. I'm not going to chase anything today. We're just going to amble along. What we find, we find. And it's just a great day being out. Can't be better, eh? Could be better, but it's awesome, awesome day.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to and Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Jared, and we've got Marcel behind the camera today. And we've also been ampling along all morning and trying to find what we can find. And we've just come across a beautiful male rhino bull. So it is a fairly large bull, so probably one of the territorial males in this area. And you'll notice that he has quite a dark rear end at the moment. And so no, that doesn't mean that this is a black rhino. That is in fact a white rhino. As you'll notice, his head's down, busy eating grass, which is always the easiest indicator that it's a white rhino. But he's been lying in some mud. There's a little bit of a mud wallow right in front of our vehicle. I think that this rhino has been sleeping here all night, and he's only probably just woken up now. And it is time for him to feed. We did just see him scent marking about 2 minutes ago, so hopefully we're going to be able to see him scent mark again, and we're actually in the perfect position to watch that little fire hydrant spray of his, which is always very interesting to watch. And you'll also notice, or you might not be able to see now, but there is a couple of oxpeckers on him, busy feeding on ticks, and that is also why he would have been lying in the mud, to help get rid of any of those parasites. And then what he can't get rid of, the oxpeckers will help him do as well. But he's a very, very large male. I reckon this bull's probably in his 20s, So around 2 tons. So Jean Beth, it does get a little bit tricky when the rhinos are older. And one of the challenges that we have here on Phinda when it comes to aging rhinos is because we dehorn the rhino. So one of the ways you can tell the rhino's age is by looking at the horns. As the rhino gets to its mid-teens to 20s, the horn's pretty much at maximum length, and what rhinos do is they constantly wear down their horns. So the horn will only get to a certain length, so to speak, and it doesn't tend to get too much longer because they keep wearing it down. So what you'll just look at is the general size. So if there's a calf next to its mother, it's much easier to age. And otherwise, you've really just got to look at the sort of wear and tear and the condition of the rhino. But once a rhino is in its teens and over, it does become a little bit more tricky to age them. So that's why I reckon probably somewhere in its 20s, but it could be a little bit off there. You'll notice this area where this rhino is busy feeding, the grass looks like it's been cut with a lawnmower, and it hasn't been. It is actually probably from rhinos and one or two other herbivores or grazers. And the way the white rhino feeds is he feeds really, really close to the ground, and so he almost cuts away at that grass as if he was a lawnmower. And you'll often find these patches of where rhinos have been feeding, and we call those rhino lawns, which is quite a apt name for what they do. So he is a male, and typically with male rhinos is they are solitary. Lorraine, there's quite a few differences between a white and black rhino. So, like I always say to everyone, so the first thing is their behavior. What is it doing? So, a white rhino is a grazer, which means it eats grass. A black rhino is a browser, which means it eats leaves and branches. And so, if you see a rhino eating grass, you know immediately it's a white rhino. But the black rhino and the white rhino's body shape is slightly different for the way that they feed. So when we're looking at this male white rhino, you'll notice because he's feeding on grass, he's not on his knees like a warthog. So he has to have a very long neck and a very long face so he doesn't bend over. Where a black rhino on average feeds at about 1.2 meters. So its head's pretty much on top of its shoulders, so it doesn't have a long face, doesn't have as long of a neck. The other difference is that because a white rhino eats grass, it's got a very wide lip or square lip, and that's designed for pulling on grass and getting as much grass into their mouth as they can. Where the black rhino has a hooked lip, or I always say it looks a little bit like a tortoise, and that's just designed for bringing the branches and leaves into the mouth. Then the ear shape is slightly different. Have a look how long the ears are of this white rhino, where a black rhino, if you've ever seen a hyena, has ears shaped a little bit more similar to a hyena, and he's going to scent mark. There we go. There's that fire hydrant spray that I was telling you about. The tips of the ears of a white rhino sort of face at about a 45-degree angle. I'm just going to reposition. He's going to go behind this tree. Where a black rhino, the tips of the ears pretty much face straight up. And then if we go towards the back, have a look. We're just going to stop now, and Marcel will go to the back of this rhino. You'll notice that when we look at his back, he's got quite a big lump on his shoulders, so they've got a very big muscle to support that big neck and head. And then when you look at the back itself, you'll notice that it is quite a flat back, where a black rhino has a very arched back, so almost looks a little bit like a horse's saddle. Height-wise, they're actually very similar in height. The white rhino is a little bit taller than the black rhino, but the white rhino is much heavier, so it's a much more rounder creature than the black rhino. On average, a big male white rhino can get to about 2.2 tons. A big white rhino gets to about 2.2 tons. A big black rhino, maybe up to about 1.5 tons, but generally a little bit less than that. So size and body shape. Color, there is absolutely no difference in the color difference between a white and black rhino. They are both gray. Now, if this rhino was to have a horn, as I mentioned earlier, we do dehorn our rhinos, and I'm sure you're all very aware why we do that. But something that's also very different between a black rhino and a white rhino when looking at the horn structure is that rhinos have two horns. You've got the front horn, which we call the primary horn, and then the horn that's behind it called the secondary horn. With white rhinos, the primary horn is very long, and generally the second horn is quite short. I think he's going to scent mark again. Yep, there we go. Spraying his territory. And just like that fire hydrant I was saying earlier. Whereas the black rhino, the primary horn is long, but the secondary horn is also pretty long. Consulting detective, they may interact, but not really in a negative way. So they don't compete for the same sort of food, so there's no reason for them to fight. They can't interbreed, so meaning that the black rhino can't mate with a white rhino and produce a grey rhino. I don't know what you would call it. So because they're not in competition for food, for territory, for females, they don't interact in a sort of negative way. You won't see a black rhino or white rhino fighting. I have seen a black rhino and white rhino come together, just sniff each other, then move off. And one of our rangers, which was an incredible photo, a couple of years ago, has a photo of a black rhino resting its head on a white rhino. I think it's going to scent mark again. Yeah, there we go. Always hope that there's no birds sitting in the tree behind where the rhino scent marks. Now, occasionally what you'll see when they scent mark as well, they may scrape as well. But generally when they spray, you can just see that big sort of fire hydrant sort of spray. So Karen Smith, the difference between scent marking and urinating would be all creatures to some sort of extent will urinate, and that is just to get rid of the waste. The exact same as how humans would. Now, animals who are territorial, so a white rhino male bull is very territorial, and so he is scent marking. Now, the word scent marking is basically he is marking his territory, or that particular bush, but marking his territory with his scent. Now, that could be through a spray of urine like you can see now. It could be even rolling on the ground, getting his body scent, or his different animals have glands that secrete a sort of scent that they will rub up against trees. That is also a form of scent marking. So scent marking doesn't just relate to urine. It is any way or manner that a particular animal will use a scent from its body to mark its territory. Alright, he is walking in the road, or at least towards the road. So what I want to do is I just want to catch up a little bit with him. He's walking away from us and we've been staring at his backside for most of the time. So let's see if we can get a little bit of a better view. But it's a great area that we're in. There's some impala, some wildebeest up ahead. The reason why we actually came into this area is one of the rangers saw a lioness, 2 lionesses with 5 youngsters heading in our direction in the thickets to the right. So I think we're going to stick around here for most of the morning. Keep a lookout at this male rhino, and hopefully those females and their cubs come out.
Well, not too much happening here. Still sleepy lions, not showing any interest in a romp, but perhaps soon. It's about time now. We had an elephant bull come walking by. They kind of just looked at each other. Female didn't even see him. But the male lion and the elephant bull looked at each other, decided it wasn't worth having a fight, and the elephant walked off. As you know, sometimes elephants take offense to predators and rush at them with lots of trumpeting, but luckily this elephant didn't come and chase our lion across the boundary. healthy looking lion. This female looks nice and full. It is a big cat, the size of those paws. In the unfortunate and rare events of lions grabbing humans in our history, it's often just that one swat from that paw that will do the job. What a massive cat, and it's hard to really visualize it when you're on the vehicle. But when you're walking in the bush and you're on foot, everything all of a sudden seems that much bigger. When you stand this close to a lion on foot, you really can appreciate the size, their heads and their paws. They're really very large cats. To keep that physique, they have to eat lots and lots. Huge portions of meat on a sitting. Big male like him can chow about 40 kilograms of meat in a go. Isn't that amazing? Think how many steaks would make up 40 kilograms of meat. The female about half that, a little bit more. Around 20 kilograms. That's a lot of meat. But that's what it needs. That's what it takes to sustain them. Sassy Cassie, you've asked, a lion afraid of elephant? They're not afraid per se. It's not like they'll run from them when they see them, but they're wise enough to give way when an elephant comes charging in, obviously being the large beast that it is. And the king out here, the largest animal we get. Nice little stretch there. Let's see if anything develops. A little bit of grooming. So now the male is initiating. Let's watch. She is playing hard to get, and we're going to have to follow. Hey, Craig, or can you still get a view there? Oh, it's going to have to be quick. Have a look there. It's about as good as we're going to get. So he's mounted her now. And that's all she wrote. Well, very special to get to see lion mating on live TV. It's a privilege to be able to show you this lion dynamic. Appears they were a little bit shy to be out here in the open, but luckily we just got to get a glimpse as they ran over there in the bush. As you can see, it doesn't last very long, just a quickie. That is why it occurs so frequently. So if we were to sit here for another 20 odd minutes, even a bit less, you'll see the exact same thing performed again and again, and this will take place for a couple days. this looks like it's only just begun. The reason I say that is because the male is initiating. The male initiated this mating occurrence. I'm just gonna, as we chat, loop around, get another view of them because they have run off quite far so that they could get some privacy. But as I was saying, the male initiated that one, so that shows me that this has only really just begun, this copulation. After a couple days of mating 3 to 4 times an hour, the male is absolutely buggered, as all the guys watching can imagine. And it kind of becomes the female that starts initiating the sexual encounters. And when that starts happening, you can see that the male is now tired, female is taking the initiative. And if he is just too finished, then she will move on to one of his brothers in the coalition. As I was saying, this superabundance of sexual opportunity that reduces the inter-coalition rivalry amongst the males. And it's also good for protecting the offspring, as these brothers never quite know who sired the cub. They might all assume that they sired the cubs, so more likely to protect the cubs, prevent infanticide, and give the little ones a better chance of growing up into adulthood. Shelley, you've asked, will the lioness definitely be pregnant? And the answer is no. They are only result in a pregnancy about 30% of these oestrus cycles, so it's not a surefire thing, which is quite amazing considering how many times they mate. But after a couple days, if she hasn't conceived, which she won't about 2/3 of the time, then she will come into oestrus again in a couple weeks, 16 days actually. And then the cycle will begin again. And if she's still not successful, it'll have to begin again until she is successful. And then the process of pregnancy and raising her cubs starts, and she then will only come into oestrus or cycle again in about 2 years. Very interesting, and it's a privilege to be able to show you this very special lion interaction.
It is most certainly a privilege to see lion interaction, but what a privilege it is to also spend time with such an ancient looking creature like this white rhino. And we just had him come investigate the vehicle a little bit. They do have very poor eyesight, so I think he just came over to get nice and close to have a look to see what we are. You'll see maybe as he starts to walk, he might pin his right ear backwards to just listen to me a little bit and then listen forward again. They do rely heavily on their sense of hearing to know what's around them. Their small little eyes would mean that they have very poor eyesight. They reckon from about 30 meters on, it does start to become a little bit of a blur. So their sense of smell and hearing is vitally important. Now you'll notice while he's walking, can you see how he's got his head right to the ground? I think he's got the scent of another rhino. So generally when they would walk, normally his head would be maybe just a foot off the ground, but his nose is right to the ground, and he's been walking the exact same line the whole way. Now, it may be a male that he's scent marking against, or, maybe a male whose track he's got, or, my vehicle's making a funny noise. That's not good. Anyway, it may be a male who he's busy tracking, and if it's a male that's come into his territory, he'll chase that male off. Or if it is a female, he might be hoping that it's a female in estrus. and we've just lost the rhino, and I've got rid of that funny sound. So he is maybe 10 meters up ahead. So let's quickly get to him. There's a beautiful open area again up ahead. So this rhino's not going to disappear anytime soon. And maybe if we get lucky, we'll find him with the rhino that he's busy looking for.
We do have impalas. We have not had a lucky morning this morning, but we have found a herd of impala. Starting their morning huddled together. There was lions around last night, remember, and feasting on their breakfast. Now, I checked the hyena den earlier. It wasn't active. I am going to go back. Theo and I have traversed most of the reserve and not much is happening. But an interesting update from the Game Drive video. Some of you may be interested. I believe Miss Luna and Nklangula are, well, flirting and potentially courting up in Buffelshoek, which is very good news. Just a little update for all you leopard people. Now, I just wonder as I look at these impala, for the females particularly, if they are all pregnant or not. Now, the shorter day length at the start of April, that's an environmental cue, actually triggers a biological cue, and that's a rise in testosterone in the bodies of mature males. The rise in testosterone then changes the male's behaviour, so it goes from environmental cue to biological cue to then the result and change in behaviour from the males. And they separate from their bachelor herd. They start to really rigorously compete with one another. As you know, they're very vocal. They try and set up temporary territories. And within their territory, they must have good access to resources. They must feed during the rutting season. And the behaviour in the males then causes the females to go into estrus. So it's a chain of events, starting with that environmental cue of the shorter day length in April. And rutting season is well and truly over. The males are all friends again. They don't need to spatially separate. Everyone's together, they're not clashing horns, they're not trying to establish dominance, and the females are now integrating with the males. So it will be very interesting to know if they're pregnant or not. And we should, of course, see this in around November and December. So I'm going to enjoy these impalas for a little while and then bumble on to the hyena den.
So we've just managed to catch up to him again. He just defecated behind us and scent mark again. And something that was very interesting to what he did is he went into a pile of dung, which is known as an area where he probably defecates quite a lot. And as he defecated these big rugby ball size pieces of dung, he kicked back. And he kicked the dung all around over his midden. And by doing that, he's spreading the scent of his dung over his feet. I think he's going to scent mark up against this tree. So he's scraping his feet for a visual marking. And there he sprays some urine. Also, because he has kicked back on the dung with the midden behind him, as he also gets some of that dung scent on the ground. So it's a visual marking as well as another way, in some ways, of scent marking. And then he urinated. Very typical. They find bushes, small little bushes, to urinate against, almost like a scent pole. And another rhino that comes past will probably go straight towards that tree and pick up on his scent. So I'm hoping he's going to come out on the other side of this bush, or has he completely changed direction? Now, just like an elephant who doesn't make a lot of noise when they move around, he's not going to come out, unfortunately. Rhinos are also very silent when they walk. You'd think they'll make quite a lot of noise. 2 tons of animal. I can guarantee you if Marcel was walking through that grass or someone else, we might be able to hear them rustle through the grass. But a rhino, just like an elephant, is absolutely quiet when walking. Not saying that Marcel's a heavy walker, but most people aren't very quiet when they walk around. Alright, we've got him here again. I think unfortunately this is going to be the last glimpse that we have on this male. So he's starting to leave the open areas now, and the area going up ahead is quite thick. And there's another open area probably in about half a kilometer away. Maybe he's heading that direction. But maybe the rhino that he's busy tracking at the moment could be in this thicket. Now the way he's walking makes me think it's probably more a female than a male. Had he picked up the scent of another male that was marking his territory in his area, you would see he'd be a little bit more frantic in the way he was walking. I need to get to this male. I need to chase him out of my territory. That being said, if a male rhino walks through another male rhino's territory, as long as he's submissive, the other male won't fight with him. So he mustn't scent mark, he mustn't defecate in his territory. And if he comes across the dominant male of that area, he mustn't show any signs of aggression. Rhinos are tolerant of other bulls coming through their territory. They're just not tolerant of bulls trying to take over their territory. So that's it with this male. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to head back into the area where we had the one of the other rangers saw the 2 lionesses and their 5 cubs. It's actually right behind us, and they're walking through a thicket in the direction of where we first found this rhino, and I'm hoping maybe they've come out of that thicket.
We are just still sitting here with this mating pair on Juma. Got to see them mating briefly. Hopefully if we sit here long enough we'll get to see it another time. Female's giving herself a nice grooming there. You wouldn't believe how rough that tongue is. It's like sandpaper. When I was a kid, I remember orphaned lions were being raised to, I don't actually know. I can't remember, I was quite young. I know that the mother had been killed, I think by poachers, and they were trying to raise these lion to re-habituate, or I'm not sure what the end game was, but I do remember getting licked by one of the cubs, and it was like sandpaper, like 80 grit sandpaper rubbing on your skin. They would very easily lick your skin off, if allowed to. Obviously assists when they're busy eating on a nice chunk of meat. Lick the fascia and tissue apart as they chew and munch. don't forget, we'd love to hear any questions you guys may have. Perhaps any questions about mating lion or lion dynamic. Welcome to send in your questions. #WildEarth. Any kids watching, got any interesting questions or comments? kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Love to hear from you. Bernice, that's an extremely interesting question. If she can't fall pregnant, how does it impact her rank or her standing in the pride? It's a very interesting question. It's nothing I can answer from experience. I've never witnessed that before, or known of a pride female that couldn't fall pregnant and then got to see how it affected her. My initial thought is it wouldn't really change too much. I mean, I think she would still remain part of the pride, would still continue to hunt, assist the pride in raising the other cubs. Lion are extremely social, and the way they raise their cubs is that all the mothers and all the females assist. So I think she would just carry on with her life of a lion, assisting the pride. But a very interesting question, Bernice. I'm going to perhaps do a bit of research on that and see if there's any documentation of such an occurrence.
Oh, we're live. My apologies. I have got lucky. Look what we found. A flap-neck chameleon. Now let's just zoom in a little bit closer to look at those eyes. It's wonderful to see a chameleon during the day. I really don't like finding them at night time. I don't want to shine any artificial light whatsoever on these animals. And they don't quite look the same in infrared. With their independently moving eyes, each eye can actually scan almost 180 degrees. So put them together, then it's almost 360. But there is a slight blind spot, and that's when anything in front of the chameleon is very close up to the animal itself, to the individual itself. The closer you go, then there's a slight blind spot right in the middle, if you like, if you draw a center line down the chameleon's face, and it just doesn't quite meet. So it's not entirely 360. But if you think of the brain and the intelligence of this chameleon, it's dealing with two vastly different images. One on the right, one on the left, and it's switching between them rapidly. So it's basically concentrating on the image from each eye for about a second or two before moving to the other. Let's just watch this eye. So it's going to focus on something on the right for a second or two, and then the brain will switch to focus on something on the left, and somehow that chameleon's brain is interpreting each image separately, which I think is so incredible. Humans definitely do not have that ability. And it's nice and green right now because it's a reptile and it's basking in the sun. Chameleons are said to be quick color changers, or quick change artists, if you like, of the animal kingdom. But actually, they're not good at it. Not at all. The process is really slow. And it's not camouflage, because look at this chameleon. It's already camouflage. It doesn't need to change color to blend in more. They're already cryptic. So what's happening when it's changing color is that it's actually broadcasting its mood. It's signaling through color change. It's not trying to blend in. There's a sort of misconception there. So using chromatophores, which are special cells, it's actually changing its color to convey its mood. And this happens through hormonal control. So there's basically signals passing in the bloodstream which eventually reach the cells and tell it to change colour. And that's why the process is slow. The real colour change artists of the animal kingdom are octopuses. Or actually, even cuttlefish and squid. So in the cephalopods group, they are the ones that can change immediately within a matter of seconds. And they do this to camouflage. They do this to blend in. And this is because it's under neural control. It's under really, really quick signals from the brain. And that's why any sort of animal in the cephalopods can change colour so quickly. It's not based on hormones. With hormones circulating through the bloodstream, it's going to take time to reach one area. Whereas a quick snap fire from a neuron is going to cause the cell to change immediately. And that's why chameleons are really not the colour change artists, of the animal kingdom. I think octopus can change colour within a fraction of a second, not even a full second, and they've already changed colour entirely. It's just really fascinating. Both chameleons and octopuses, not related, they're changing colour for different reasons. And that's why it's under two different forms of control. One is hormonal, one is neural. Consulting detective, very good question. How do chameleons find a mate? Well, it's not easy. And that's what part of the colour change is for. They're not fast, they're reptiles. They rely on energy from the sun. They're not going to move very far. So they need to find a mate within their immediate vicinity. So by changing colour, that's the first start of the process for a male. And a male chameleon, at least of the flapneck variety, the sort of scales on its throat, if you like, they will actually change. They're normally orange, and they will become really pale grey in breeding males. So there's a visual cue. That colour change allows the male to approach the females to mate. Now, I will come back to that question. There's lots more to say on how chameleons find a mate. But for now, we're going to let this little guy be and keep bumbling on.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
So I was hoping to actually get the mom on the nest here. This is the Cape turtle dove nest that we looked at yesterday, or was it yesterday? I think the day before. Yesterday, it was yesterday, yeah. So maybe, well, we'll pop in and out over the next couple of days as well. But I was hoping the mom would be on the nest now, but she's probably already gone off feeding or down to water. But while we're on it, remember I was pondering on the method of drinking. Oh, okay, we've got some lions mating. Head over there. I'll chat about those.
The tail end. Just got the tail end of that mating session there. Once again initiated by the male, so he's still feeling strong. Very, very cool. interesting. Lionesses often, I've seen a male do it before, but mostly lionesses often roll on their backs right after mating. Very common, they kind of roll on their back side to side. But as far as I know, no one really knows what the purpose of that is. Perhaps one of the viewers has an idea, but I've never been able to tell. I've often wondered maybe it has something to do with assisting in conception, or who knows why they do that, why they roll on their backs right after mating. We are going to stay here, hopefully catch them again in the action.
There we go. So I hope that was an awesome lion sighting. It sounded like it was pretty cool. So what I was just saying about the doves here, so, I was pondering a couple of weeks ago about their drinking behavior, where most birds scoop water and doves actually siphon water. So they'll actually put their whole beak into the water and they'll actually just kind of like suck the water. And one of the viewers very, very, very kindly, because I was wondering kind of like, what is the evolutionary background to this? And one of a very kind viewer sent me a fantastic bit of information. And it actually stems from, again, it hasn't pinned down the evolutionary, the why of it, but certainly the how. So these youngsters, these little chicks on all the columbriforms, so it's all your doves, pigeons, those kind of things, the mother actually produces crop milk for the chicks. So it's not like she's coming and feeding them little bits of seeds and those kind of things. She actually produces crop milk, and the youngsters stick their beak inside the mother's mouth, and then they actually drink that crop milk from it. And to do that, they've actually got to suck that milk out. So there's a nice thing in terms of that's where the actual water drinking technique comes from. But it still doesn't answer the question of why did they evolve that. And yes, I am using the word evolve. Why did they evolve that technique in the first place? What is it that drove that group of birds, the columbriforms, to develop that technique for the chicks to drink like it? What is it that did that? And that's what I want to know. So, but anyway, so that at least it kind of like points to why the adults drink water the way they do. But it's still for me, it's still not answering the initial question of most other birds drink water. They'll dip their head, drink, dip their head, drink. But then you get a dove that and then flies off. That is absolutely fascinating. So still so much to learn. I'm doing something crazy over here, and I'm not going to get it right. Well, I don't think I'll get it right. I'm just actually trying to follow an insect track. And I'm just trying to figure out what on earth this weird creature is. We'll have a look at these tracks just now, but they are the most mind-blowing little tracks. And I actually can't get my head around who it is just yet, but I'll figure it out over time.
Well, still sleepy lions, sleeping off their last little excitement. Craig and I are hoping for another cool sequence, and hopefully they don't run off this time into the bush. It's like they're a little bit shy. Not extremely aggressive mating. Oftentimes it's quite a rowl at the end, as the male retracts, or withdraws. The predator penis is actually quite spiky, barbed, and it causes discomfort to the female, causing her to often turn around and give a bit of a bite, with the male also often biting her neck, which I think is more ritualized than anything. But there can be some serious drama after a mating session. But even more so in leopard. Leopard are far more violent in my experience, although lion can be quite hard on each other. But these two seem to be quite relaxed, full of love this morning. Nancy's big sister, you've asked, how do lion males keep up if several females are in estrus? Well, I suppose, like any male, they just try their best. But they do get worn out. It's not common, I mean, it does happen that all the females will be in estrus at the same time, but and the books will often tell you they try and synchronize it, but I haven't really seen that, to be honest. In my experience, I often see different age classes in one pride. So, in my experience, not too common that all the pride females would be in estrus. But, of course, there's also more than one male, so I guess they just do their best, keep their ladies happy. It's the best they can do. Marty, you asked, all these lion have a special bond when they're back with the pride, and short answer, no. What they're doing now is purely instinctual, purely for the progression of the pride, which is what they care about most. Females are inherently wanting to raise cubs. It's instinctual for them, and for the male, he wants to further his genetics. That's his instinct. And when he smells an opportunity, that's when he will go for it, and he'll spend these couple days with her. But once it's done, I think he pretty much forgets about it and just focuses on keeping his pride safe. So no, I wouldn't say there would ever be a special bond. It's not really emotional. It's more instinctual. But who am I to say that? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are in love.
We're just having a look at two young giraffe in this open area. You'll notice the one just at the back have gone to lie down, and this other one is moving literally from one little clump to the next. Now, notice how small that tree is right in front of it, and it's just picking off the leaves. Normally when you see giraffes, you always see them up almost having to stretch to get to some of the branches, but this little one is just moving in all these small shrubs in this clearing, just picking up some of the leaves. You'll even notice around his head, they're still, like the horns are very, very fluffy. Often a good sign when they're young. Look at him bending down. Very playful mood this morning. You'll notice just on the back of the this particular giraffe, there's those red-billed oxpeckers. And often with giraffes, before you even see them, you might even hear these oxpeckers flying up and down, like from where they are. And what they're after is that those blood-filled ticks that might be on that little mane. See that line of hair or that ridge of hair on the neck, back of the neck of this giraffe, and they might just go and pick off some of the ticks, maybe even like on the belly, even behind the ears, maybe around the face. But for now, it's just such a beautiful scene with the light on this giraffe and seeing the different patterns. And also like the one that's lying down off to the right. You don't really see giraffes lying down like that. And sometimes when they do sleep, they might just fold their neck back and rest it on top of their backs. Have a look at that. And you can imagine for a youngster like this, when it's lying down like that, it's pretty vulnerable. And so that's probably why I decided to move into an open area like this and decide to lie down, because at least if there's any lions or anything moving through, you'll be able to spot it from a distance and immediately get up and then run away from there. Mojo, those ossicones are fluffy. Like, it's often a sign if they're really young because there's a lot of hair, but as they get older they start losing a bit of that hair. And especially if they are males, then whenever they do fight with each other through that, it's called necking, where they basically cross their heads and they hit each other or try to hit each other off their feet. And then because of that impact, it then wears down the rest of those ossicones. But you'll notice the females, they still have those tufts of hair, but not as long as in comparison to the baby. So they're almost like as they're young, they grow into that as they get older. You can see this one just probably has a bit of an itch on the back, so it's using that lower jaw with those teeth just as a comb to brush through that hair, probably just to try and get rid of that itch. Gambino, both the males and the females do have those ossicones. And it's not like with some antelope you find it where the males might have horns and the females don't have horns, but with giraffe both of them would have. To tell the difference between the males and the females, it's very difficult, especially when they're young, if you just had to look at the head and the horns. But as they get older, the males, the horns tend to be bigger, and then also as they get older, it tends to eventually wear down all the hair on top of the head. But normally the females, they have more delicate horns because they don't really use their horns in order to fight with one another, but the males do. So it's a little bit harder in structure, and it's a bit bigger, and then of course just worn down because of the fighting. And one is just moving off, trying to hide himself from us. Notice, even though this one is looking like off to the right, just notice how the ears are pointing backwards. So Sassy Cassie with giraffe, so I've been very fortunate enough to be part of a giraffe capture where they had to relocate them to other areas, and when we felt the giraffe, they were pretty hard. I mean, the skin wasn't as smooth or the hair wasn't as soft as you would think it would be. However, with the youngsters, because they are a lot more fluffy when they're young, and as they get older they start losing that, I'm sure they'll be softer to the touch in comparison to that of adults. But in general, I mean, it does look a lot softer than it will probably be. But in the meantime, with this giraffe, I don't think it's going to head anywhere pretty soon. You can see it's just settled down. Maybe if it gets warmer, it might go join up with the mum. It's a little bit off to the left in a denser area. But for now, let's slowly carry on with our drive. Maybe there's a chance of finding some of the other animals like wildebeest, zebra, elephants. We are still looking out for possibly some lions. So we'll just have to give it a go.
About that, don't know what happened to Dylan's voice this morning, but we are just sitting watching some elephants. There's a large one, an adult, and then a youngster. I think there's actually far more off in the distance, but they're slightly behind this drainage line. And it's funny, Theo and I were just discussing where on earth are all the elephants? There was thousands, well, not quite. There was a lot of elephants around yesterday, and we've managed to find some. But on these really cold winter mornings, what you tend to find is that a lot of the animals will actually stay hidden in the blocks, in the vegetation, other than predators who need to patrol, and that is because they're trying to stay warm. It was misty this morning, it was damp, it was cold. So staying in amongst the vegetation actually keeps them warmer. Can hear them feeding. Londeka, I think you have the wrong channel. Can you hear them? Good morning. There's nothing quite like a grey bottom sticking out of the bush. The sightings of elephants we're having at the minute is really magnificent. They're very relaxed. Winter puts pressure on the elephant's diet, and because they normally have to switch to branches and shrubs and trees in the winter, it wears down their molars quicker. So if you were to compare populations of African elephants in the Masai Mara and compare populations of African elephants here in the Kruger, the Masai Mara populations are said to live slightly longer because they have a year-round diet of soft grasses. It doesn't wear down the molars so much. And when an elephant's molars completely wear down, that's the main cause of death within elephants worldwide, excluding, of course, disease and human factors, shall we say. I didn't get that name, I'm afraid, but you're asking about are African elephants considered endangered, and yes, they are. They completely are. The best tool to use is a website called the IUCN Red List, and it stands for the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, but it's far easier to say IUCN, and it's a wonderful website, and it tells you so much. It details lots of different It has lots of different information about different species, and the statistics actually says that more than 32,000 species are threatened with extinction globally as it stands right now. And the elephant, the African elephant, I'm sure is listed currently as vulnerable, but I'm just checking this for you now. I'm sure it's vulnerable. And this is of course mainly due to poaching for ivory, which is very, very sad. But the statistics are for the whole of Africa. So it doesn't break populations down by country. It breaks populations by sort of on a global scale. So yes, African elephants are listed as vulnerable, but it's a great tool. If any of you wish to check it out, head to iucnredlist.org, and it gives you information on any organism that you may wish to know about. But it does say that the population trend for African elephants is increasing. So that's good news. It's still listed as vulnerable, but it's getting better. There's actually a scale on what they classify populations as. And this is the same for fish, for reptiles, amphibians. Any organism can be classified on this scale, and it goes from data deficient, which means there's not enough data to really say what the population numbers are, and then it heads to least concern. And least concern, of course, that tells you that there's nothing to worry about, the populations are healthy. Then it goes to vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, locally extinct, and then extinct. There's a lot of information there. It's a great tool, and yes, African elephants are listed as vulnerable. But in this particular area, I would say the populations are thriving. There's anti-poaching units here, there's rules in place, there's a fence, not around Djuma, but around the broader area of the Sabi Sands that just stops the elephants roaming into populations or civilizations. Human-animal conflict is a huge problem, especially across the developing world. Okay, we're probably going to bumble around and see if we can catch up and get some better views of the rest of this herd.
So we were unsuccessful in trying to find those 2 lionesses and her 5 youngsters, and we managed to join up again with this white rhino male. Oh, he's just disappeared again. That's what you call rotten luck. I've been sitting with him. He's been doing absolutely nothing for 5 minutes, just staring at us. And as we go live, he decides to continue on through the thicket. My guess looks like he's still on another rhino, just watching the way that he's walked off, smelling on the ground like that. There isn't really any water in that direction, which also makes me think that's why I know that he's heading off to go look for another rhino. Because normally what would happen is that during the day, the direction of where there's water, rhinos on water, and rhino that has gone that way, once he's decided exactly what he's going to do there, or once he's done with what he's going to do there, he may head off to 1 or 2 of the other water holes in this area. But very exciting to see him. We haven't seen a rhino in this particular area for a little while now, as it's starting to dry up. There's less water around, and we're starting to see rhinos moving through to other areas of the reserve, particularly females, although males are territorial, so they'll generally tend to keep their territories. Females and their calves will shift around, and that movement will often depend on the quality of grazing in the area as well as water around. So we're going to still try to keep with this male. It has just gone through a thicket now. It is a little bit thick and then starts to open up. So I'm going to continue on and see if I can maybe get another view for you later.
Well, still here with this mating pair. Nothing more has happened since you were last live with us. But hopefully soon. It's been about the right amount of time, so let's hope in the next few minutes that something develops. Very cool that you've had a nice rhino sighting this morning. I think rhino is probably my favorite animal to spend time with on foot. Just something prehistoric about them, their movements. But also the animal that we spend the majority of our time protecting out here, as they are still under constant threat of poaching. Unfortunately, our wildlife has become a prized item for unscrupulous people who wish to make a profit off of it, so it's come under siege all around the world, not just here. And it's a constant fight and a constant job to protect wildlife in our conservation areas. Thankfully, there are lots of philanthropists and kind-hearted people who assist conservation bodies, and there's many conservation groups who do excellent work to prevent poaching and exploitation of wildlife and to protect them for future generations. Just a nice sleepy line here, but we'll be sure to bring you back live as soon as something develops.
So we've got a big sable bull just up here on the dune crest. He's actually been feeding. He was just moving. He was out in the open earlier. He's just moved across to the right over here, to the left. But I want to tell you, while we're looking at lions, these animals can be incredibly dangerous. And they are renowned fighters, these sable antelope. Those horns can be absolutely lethal. The wind is in our favor, so I just want to give you a quick demonstration here of how you can actually approach an animal closely using the wind. As quietly as possible. I got it. No, it's an old set of horns, just in case anyone was wondering. So there was absolutely no danger to me or to the sable, in fact. But it just gives you, oops, no, it's whole horn. Anyhow, that's an interesting thing as well. Let me show you there. So this is, someone was asking about it the other day. Someone asked the other day about the horns and what's inside them. So you can see the horn literally comes off, and it's actually supported by the bones of the skull. So this is actually fused to the skull itself, and the horns are literally a sheet that fits over it like that. Perfect. This is an old male. You can see how the horns are completely worn off on both tips over there. But beautiful animals, eh? And yes, they can be very dangerous to predators. Not this one. Put it back where we found it. And here's his shoulder blade. Anyway, that's cool. And yeah, so but I've got something else really, really interesting to show you while we're here, and this is really cool. I need a small stick. Okay. If you look on the ground here, look at these stunningly beautiful tracks that we've got. And look at the scale, so my knife is there, gives you some idea of the size. See all the little toes. Tiny, tiny little toes. So this is a lizard. He was going this direction. You can see his tail drag mark there in the middle, but over here, he actually turned around. Did a little U-turn there, and then he went out here. And to give you an idea of how the tracks change, because remember, the substrate makes a difference, the speed that the animal's moving makes a difference, what he's actually doing makes a difference. So where you can see all these clear, the actual toe marks, and as you follow the track up here, suddenly you can't even see those toes. Look at that. So it just gives you a really nice idea of how the tracks can change. But the sand is beautiful, and there's just so many. I mean, look at these little tracks here. I mean, who on earth is that? Look how fine and delicate that is. You know, is that maybe a Camponotus ant? I have no idea. Anyhow, I'll lose it over here. But just there's so much stuff going on here. So exciting.
How amazing is this? We just basically drove maybe a kilometer or two from that other open area we were at with the giraffes, and we spotted these two male lions. Oh, down. So this is, the one is right here, the other one has just moved off to a bit of shade in the back. But what we'll do is we'll just try and spend some time with this one, because you might just notice through the bush right there, there's some movement in the back. And that's the other one that's just probably going to go and find a nice patch of shade to lie down for the day. See, he's still moving. How beautiful is the mane on this particular male lion? Because it almost looks like there's a two-tone color here. Like if you look around the face, it's this blondish color, but then just under it, it's this, like it phases into this very dark mane, and then a bit of grey on the side of the body, and then a little bit of a whitish belly. But he blends in so well with this grass. Now, we were very lucky that when we saw him, he had his head up. If he was lying down like this, we'd probably have just driven past without being able to see him. Now, for those of our viewers that have been following us for a while, so these are the two dominant males that are often seen in this area, and they join up with that big pride, and then occasionally they'll venture off, re-establish their territory, like go and roar, scent mark, just tell all the other males that this is their area and they're not supposed to be there, and eventually from there they'll go and join up with the pride again. Now, it only looks, as it stands, I mean, we haven't really scanned the area properly, but it looks like it's only these two males at the moment. And of course, this one lying down, the other one gone down. I can just slightly see him in the back. He's just gone and lie down in the shade. And it won't be too long. It is slowly starting to warm up before this one will get up and start moving to the shade. I don't think they're going to head too far from here after this morning. But a really nice find. Critter Freak, I agree with you. It's so nice being able to see them and seeing both of them together, because even with the pride over the last few days, if I'm not mistaken, it was only the one that was seen with the pride the whole time. and not the other one, but now both of them have joined up, and I can just imagine the one would have probably roared in this area, the other one heard it and eventually decided to come and meet up again. Because often if they do need to defend their territory, it's a lot better, easier for them if there's two of them instead of just being one, having to patrol the area. THD, with the mane, it often helps to attract the females. You can imagine a male with very impressive mane. It helps to almost like show off and show the females how beautiful and how big they are. But the other thing is also to intimidate other males. You can imagine if a male has quite a big mane and the other one doesn't, it might even intimidate them before they actually fight. But also if they do fight, imagine how that mane is able to, in a way, protect them against when they do lash out at each other, either with those sharp claws or even those teeth. It just helps a little bit with the protection, especially around the neck. Because imagine all those vital arteries and veins that are running on close to the surface of the skin, how easily, especially with lions with those sharp claws, they can tear into that. But now just acts as a bit of protection, but also a way of attracting the females. Butterfly, they do in a way reminds us of beards, but in this case it's probably a big full beard and like long hair, because you can see like it starts all the way from underneath his chin all the way down and wraps around towards the ears and then on top of the head. And when they're young, it starts off as if you had to compare it, like a beard. And as they get older, it slowly starts to move all the way around the head. And eventually, the top section between the ears is the ones that develop later on. And you'll see a young lion around about the age of 4 will have an impressive mane at the bottom, but it looks like it has a little mohawk at the top. And as they get older, it starts growing out a bit more. And it's only when they're around about 6.5 years and more will they'll have a very impressive mane. Up to 8 years. But it's just so nice and quiet in this area. There's barely, you can't see, there's no other life around, not even a bird chirping. And early on, two of the trackers that are currently out, so Richard and Ernie has gone on leave, and we have Tom and Adam that has joined us, and they actually said to us we needed to come into this area to have a look because they heard them. So maybe with them roaring earlier on, of course most of the animals would have moved away because they knew that these lions are here. Cam hoppers, sometimes they'll be able to scent mark the same tree, but in general it all depends on where they move in the area. So sometimes they do split up and one will mark a certain area, but if there's a tree in an open area, both will scent mark against the tree. It might not be over each other, but it could be on the side. There's a chance it could be over each other, but they, as long as one of them could just put down their scent, and then because even with them being brothers, so there will be a dominant one. And with these ones, we've noticed sometimes when they're with different prides, the one will tend to be more dominant than the other. So it's not like, okay, the one with the darker mane is the more dominant in general with everything. It could change. And because of that, they do share the mating rights whenever they move into a pride as well. So if they do find a bush, they'll just send mark against the bush. Either way, whoever goes first, probably the other one will probably try and cover it up. But as long as just their scent is there, then the other males in the area know that this is their territory and they won't move in here. And if they do, of course, then they'll have to deal with these two brothers. He's just so relaxed at the moment. His ear's not even moving. Sometimes when lions lie down like that and there's even a bit of flies around, you'll see them just flicking their ears. But it is slowly warming up. Listen. The other male in the back is giving a bit of a half-hearted attempt on a roar there, and it might be that they've roared during the evening into the morning, and so now it's just maybe a last few just before they settle in for the day. You can see this one didn't even lift his head to respond to that. Yes, yeah, I agree with you. This one didn't even blink, didn't even lift his head, didn't even move, as if he wasn't even fussed. But the one lying down at the back, I mean, when we heard it now, it sounded quite faint in the distance, and he's not too far away from us. And I just reckon the reason why it sounds like that is just because it's not been giving, that's not his, it's not a full-on attempt in order to roar. I think it's just more of a letting all the other lions know. And I mean, for us, we hearing this and it sounds to us, oh, it's maybe not that loud, but I imagine with lions having a lot better hearing, how far they were able to hear that. And who knows, maybe the pride could be nearby. We just don't know yet. We'll probably go and have a look after this and see if we can see any signs of them. But the way that they're lying down in this grass and with a little bit of sun on them, so relaxed.
Well, still no action here, but perhaps in the last few minutes of the show we might get another interaction. A little bit of stretching and moving about. Content grumbling as they snooze away. But overall, a lovely game drive this morning. We've had some great sightings. And of course, the special interaction between the mating pair of lion. Well, it's been a lovely morning. As I say, it's just special to be out here in the bush and enjoy the sights and the sounds and the smells of Africa at its best. Being out here in the wild is truly a privilege, and it's really lovely to be able to bring it to you and experience this together. Of course, being live is just so special, seeing it as we see it. Butterfly, you say an exquisite drive. I couldn't agree more. Africa at its finest. I'm sure this mating pair will hang around, so maybe we'll catch up with them again this afternoon. But until then, wherever you are in the world, have a lovely day, and we'll see you this afternoon. Cheers.